I want to try something a little bit different today. When I was working as a coach on teams, I didn't really ever comment on what was going on in the scene and what other teams were doing, because frankly, I think it's a little bit unprofessional. But now that I'm not working anywhere, we have a chance to talk about some of the things that are going on in esports. So what I wanted to make this video on is the thing that came out recently around C9 and this idea of working 12-hour days. So for people who didn't see it, in the coaching video that they made recently, Mithy was talking about the fact that they expect the players to work 12 hours a day. Now, there's been a lot of interesting discussion around this, and I want to come in on a few points that I see brought up a lot. The first is that you need to spend 12 hours a day doing something to be the best at it. Now, firstly, this is just completely not true. Something that people bring up a lot is the comparison between sport athletes. People who work professionally in football don't train 12 hours a day. They don't train 72 hours a week, and this is true. But it's true for a number of different reasons. The first being that the game doesn't change. A lot of times in esports, whether we know it or not, whether we care to admit it or not, a lot of the training that we're doing is simply just getting used to the patch or getting into the new thing that's coming out, the new champion, a new build or something like that. And that's why a lot of times you go through a few years coaching with people and they actually don't really progress. We're on this like permanent treadmill. But the second and more important reason is that you just physically can't. Your body can't train that many hours a day in football or running or something like that. So the hours you need to be the best at something depend on what exactly you're doing. If you're not putting in more hours than other people, then you need to be working substantially smarter, or you do have the potential to be left behind. So if you're a lawyer or something like that and you want to be the best in the world, it could be that 70 hours a week is what you need to be putting in. It could be that it's even more potentially. The second point that I want to say on this is that they don't work 12 hours a day, or what non-esports people with real jobs would call 12 hours a day. And this is something that happens all the time. Players massively overreport. We do the same as coaches. If you're watching this and you work 9 to 6 in an office job somewhere in a city and you're thinking, oh my God, imagine doing another half of that again. I only work 8 hours a day. This is absolutely not the case. In esports, we love to be seen as grinders. We love to be seen as putting in a huge number of hours. It's the same actually in a lot of places in the modern workspace, but in esports, there's like no adult supervision. So we basically just say more and more and more. It's the same when you see Showmaker saying, oh, I work 16 hours a day. It's like, okay, really depends what we mean by work here. This is not 12 hours of scrims. This is not 12 hours of scrims and individual practice. This is not even 12 hours of scrims and individual practice and solo queue. And I would guess if you include watching VODs seriously, actually taking notes, still doesn't come close to this 12-hour mark. Third point is working 12 hours a day the best thing for performance in esports? And I say again, that depends what you mean by work. But if you do mean actual work, then I would say absolutely no. For some players, the best thing I can do for them after scrims is to tell them to take a walk, for example. It gets them outside to the fresh air, it gets movement to their body, it's not sitting like they've been doing all day, it allows them quiet and a space to think, it releases stress and cortisol and all that that's been building up through a day of scrims. But does that mean when they come back, they need to work another extra hour into the evening? Are they thinking, wait, but if I do this, I'm going to have to stay even later tonight? So then, if recovery and gym and stuff like that is building into this 12 hours, then it leads me on to the next point. What's the point in having this as an agreement? To be fair, I don't know what we expect the guys to work 12 hours actually means. If it's in the contract, I have no idea what the benefit is. I don't see any benefit. I only see downsides. But I'm not a contract lawyer, so if you do know any reasons why having this in the contract would be a good thing, let me know down below. My guess is what they mean is they want a team of grinders. They want a team of players who work hard. And this is okay. It's a very effective kind of culture if you can build one. It's something like G2 do. I mean, we've seen Romain's tweets around their scrims, around the fact that they never cancel, everyone else is cancelling and kind of giving up work early. But the way that G2 get there is more complex and takes a bit more time. It's not just put 12 hours in the contract. So as I said, this 12 hours as a specific rule only makes sense if everyone knows it's not really 12 hours. In which case, what's the point in putting it there? It's basically saying, let's all just agree to work really, really hard. But if you're going to do that and you're just kind of making up hours, why is it okay to have 0 hours on your off day? Most players still play a lot of the game on their off day. There are some players who don't play that much. There are some who might even not play any games at all. But I don't think you'll find anyone who doesn't think about the game, talk about the game, watch things about the game, watch VODs from other leagues on their off day. In which case, if we're just saying hours, is it not more effective to say 10 hours a day rather than 12 hours 6 days a week? But the last point that I want to make, almost counter to all the things that I've said, all the problems with something like this, is that being a professional in esports takes huge sacrifice. And we should absolutely admire the people who do it. There's a Simon Cox quote that I really like. This is the pointy end of high performance. It can be brutal, it can be unkind, and it's absolutely unforgiving. But we should really admire the people who choose to do this. There's an underlying assumption around a lot of this discussion, especially in performance coaching and especially in academic circles around performance and coaching and things like that, that actually everything is kind of all about longevity and health. And it's not. It's the same with American football or rugby or combat sports. These will shorten your life, being the best at something like this. Competing in the Olympics, for example, will take years off your life with a lot of the competitions. And yet if you told people that that's what they're doing, they would still opt into it. It might not be the decision you would make, might not even be the decision I would make anymore, but it absolutely should be respected. There's a Yeats poem that I love called An Irish Airman Foresees His Death, about a soldier who goes to war for the thrill, for lack of a better word, to do something important, to do something special with his life. And it ends with the lines, I balanced all, brought all to mind, the years to come seem waste of breath, a waste of breath the years behind in balance with this life, this death. Now, of course, that's in a sense massively overdramatic when we're talking about esports, we're talking about people playing a computer game, but giving up your social life, giving up the chance at a lot of different relationships, going to live in a foreign country where you don't speak the language and you're never going to have time to learn it because you have to work so much at this. Sacrificing all of this and devoting yourself to one thing with almost no thought of how it's going to pay off in the future, just to be the absolute best at something, is really, really special, and it's something that we should absolutely admire. But that's just what I think. What do you think? Let me know down below. And what are some of the parts of this that maybe I've missed?